The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not representative of the opinions and doctrine of Morris Community Church. We reserve the right to change our minds, and we reserve the right to be wrong. Welcome to the Roasted Christian Podcast. This is Bobby.
And I'm John. Here at the Roasted Christian, we like our ideas the way we like our coffee. Roasted.
Johnny, we are in a different location right now.
Yeah. We are literally in a coffee corner.
We're literally in a corner at a coffee shop, at our local coffee shop, Common Cup in Morris, Minnesota. And we decided to try something a little bit different, have a little... give John a break on his coffee making requirements.
Yeah, I was just sick of making coffee. It actually felt really nice to just bring in a laptop because normally I have to juggle a bunch of mugs and thermoses and yep.
Yeah, so this is quite a bit easier. And today, not only are we in a special location, we have a special guest with us, our friend David Swedburg. Say hi to the nation.
Hello, everyone in the nation.
Should we call him the nation?
The RCP Nation?
How about just Podcast Nation?
Okay.
Because all of podcastdom can hear us.
Well, Bobby, actually, nation is pretty provincial. We're expecting to go global with this thing. So.
It's true. So if you want something, start thinking about in terms of that now. So that way you're not going to be surprised.
Dress for the job you want.
Dress for the job you want.
Unless you want to be Batman.
What do you call Roasted Christian, devoted listeners? Is that the RCP Nation or...
In some posts, I think we've called it roasters.
Roasters.
But
yes.
I don't know. Maybe that's corny.
Yeah, but...
All about that corn.
Yeah.
Is corn a vegetable?
All right, let's get it straight into the chit-chat about vegetables. John and his lovely wife were over at my house, and we were playing a game. Whitney and I, John and Johanna. Anomia.
Yes.
Is the name of the game. And I don't know how we even got onto
I think one of the
vegetables.
cards you literally had to list a fruit.
List a fruit.
Yeah.
And I probably said apple.
Yeah.
And I said apple because I read somewhere about apples being what's called a false fruit.
Right, so you were like apple, but apple's a false fruit.
But apple's a false fruit.
Kind of you screwed yourself.
I kind of already negated my own point. But then Whitney throws this out there, and I got to explain my ignorance. Well, I don't have to explain it. We all know I'm ignorant. But she throws this out there, and my mind just exploded.
It was weird.
She said, well, cucumbers are a fruit. And I said...
Well, because first we were talking about why apples are a false fruit.
Why apples are a false fruit.
And it's a very narrow definition of fruit, which led us to be like, okay, what else is not a fruit? Because it has something to do with the way that the seeds grow are implanted.
I'm getting that up.
So an apple is a false fruit because it grows off of a stem.
Yes.
If I recall correctly.
Technically... fruit is the part of a plant that develops from a flower. It's also the section of the plant that contains the seeds. The other part of plants are considered vegetables. And an apple is considered a false fruit because an apple's flesh is not derived from the ovary, but instead it is a swollen receptacle or part of the stem.
Those swollen receptacles.
Swollen receptacles. Oh, boy. So... Technically, it's a false fruit. But she threw out, cucumbers are fruits, and we're like, no way is a cucumber a fruit. So we do what you always do in this new technology. We Google it. Yeah. The following are technically fruits. Avocados, beans, pea pods, corn kernels, cucumbers, grains, nuts, olive peppers, pumpkin, squash, sunflower seeds, and tomatoes.
And that's only based on the definition that you provided.
Swollen receptacles.
The flesh is grown around a swollen
and
receptacle.
Yes. Not ovaries.
So here's my deal. Originally we were trying to figure out what makes a fruit. Maybe they're all round. Maybe you can roll them.
Yeah.
And I guess a cucumber fits in that category.
Yeah. Sunflower seeds.
Okay, if an apple,
you can't roll sunflower. You can flick it.
If an apple is a false fruit, but a pumpkin is a fruit, I think we'd need to seriously re-examine even the scientific definition of fruit, because we have so many fruits, especially like dietary wise fruits that don't fall under the fruit category. It just blows my mind. Like, yes, I'm willing to accept that tomatoes are fruits. Like, that's fine. I'll deal. But like nuts, no, it's just bizarre.
Yeah, this is. I also found that the fruit vegetable debate can sometimes reach such a fever pitch that law must step in. So I'm reading from a Live Science article. It says in 1893, the United States Supreme Court case Nix versus Hedon, the court ruled unanimously that an imported tomato should be taxed as a vegetable rather than taxed as a fruit.
Oh my goodness.
Because we definitely need the court to tell us what's a fruit.
So they ruled in favor of a vegetable.
They ruled in favor of the tomato being a vegetable.
Interesting.
At least for taxes.
And that's,
for tax
that's
purposes.
held since 19...
That's a
good... What year was that? 28?
That was 1893.
Oh, 1893.
The court acknowledged that a tomato is a botanical fruit, but went with what they called the ordinary definitions of fruit and vegetables, the ones used in the kitchen. So there's a botanical one which talks about like essentially the flavor that you get from it. Right. There's a difference in flavor of culinary vegetables and botanical fruits, so they kind of make that distinction, and the tomato kind of rests in between.
So is that just based on proportion of like sugar content, like how sweet something is?
Yeah, they were saying sweet versus savory, I think. Right. Botanically speaking, a fruit is a seed-bearing structure that develops from the ovary of a plant, whereas vegetables are all other parts of the plant. By those standards, seedy outgrowths such as apple, squash, and yes, tomatoes are all fruits. The outlook is quite different in culinary terms, however. A lot of foods that are botanically speaking fruits, but which are savory rather than sweet, are typically considered vegetables by chefs. This includes such botanical fruits as eggplant, bell peppers, and tomatoes. So chefs consider the tomato a vegetable.
Gotcha.
Because of how you eat it and you cook it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Bob, I pay attention to... I pay a little bit of attention to the Anabaptist scene.
Ooh. The scene?
Yeah. It's a scene, apparently. It's very... I don't know if you want to call it progressive. I mean, the movement started a while ago.
Yeah.
You've got like your Mennonites and such are Anabaptists. Mm-hmm. But they generally see Scripture as Christ-centered, so everything should be seen through the lens of Christ. Mm-hmm. They're generally pacifists. They're generally people who abstain from like getting involved in politics and the like. Okay. So their viewpoint interests me. So there's a couple of people I follow, and one of them is this guy, Bruxy Cavey.
Okay.
Real hippie looking dude. His real name is Timothy Bruce Cavey.
What's with the Bruxy?
From Bruce, maybe? I don't know. But he's come down and he's spoken at Greg Boyd's church. They've swapped churches for like to do sermons and stuff before, which is how I know of him.
So he's a Minnesota dude?
He has a church in Canada.
Oh, okay. Well, that's basically Minnesota.
Yeah. We're almost there. It's called, so his church is called the Meeting House. Anyway, so I saw a picture of him on the interwebs.
Okay.
And a brand new tattoo on his arm, like large, reads Leviticus 19:28.
You gotta remind me.
Which is the verse that says, "You shall not mark yourselves for the dead, and you shall not tattoo yourself."
I like it.
I'm like, so at first I was like,
that's
dude, that's way too irreverent.
And
then I was thinking about it this morning, and I'm like, you know, actually, like any Christian who tattoos themselves is basically saying what he said.
Yes.
Like, you are putting Leviticus 19:28 as a tattoo on yourself.
Wow.
So yeah, he actually got some mad respect for me.
Now you have a tattoo.
I have a tattoo.
David has a few.
A few.
I don't, and I think you're all going to hell.
I mean, it figures.
Just kidding.
I remember a certain conversation a few years ago, Bob, where you said, if I got the New York Yankees tattooed on my butt, would I be going to hell?
I actually said this?
That's the question that you wanted me to answer. Because I was saying, like, if you get a tattoo, or for me, if I get a tattoo, I want it to be representative of my dedication or of my being possessed
by Christ.
By Christ.
Sure.
So, and you were saying like, so any tattoo outside of that range, aka a New York Yankees on your butt, would not fit that category. So that also be.
What do you have? What tattoos do you have, David?
So I've got 3 that are very intentional, right?
Okay.
Like kind of conversation starters and testimony pieces of my life, right? So when I turned 18, I actually had to wait 6 months because my mother was like super adamantly against me getting a tattoo.
Okay.
And when I wanted to get my ears pierced when I was 15, like she thought we had made a deal, like if I let you get your ears pierced, you'll never get a tattoo. But like,
so you conned
I
her.
did not agree.
You started the con at
it's a
15.
slippery
So the
slope.
two of us, so the two of us didn't agree on that actually having been established.
Okay.
So
there was no contract.
So basically, it took like 6 months of me like trying to talk to my mother, because basically I was like, it's not worth me getting a tattoo and that affecting me and my mom's relationship for the rest of my life.
Especially if it's like on your face or something.
Right. The one that I have,
I was going to say like a picture of your own butt on your face.
Yep. But after about 6 months, I actually had wanted a tattoo of a sling and a stone.
Okay.
For like, since I was 15. And so I finally got that one, right? My name is David.
Yeah.
Represents David.
Life is Goliath.
I kind of, I relate a lot to a lot of his stories and find like, just like the person of David is a very encouraging, like mix of someone who is God's beloved, yet a very broken person, you know? So,
you could say that in the mic, John. It's okay.
I don't know if it's being picked up right now, but this is the most annoying song.
There's
in the
a
whole
song,
world.
some Shake It song.
It's Hey Ya by, I don't remember
who.
Who.
It's a very acoustic version of
my cousins actually
whiny, like
it's like their favorite song ever, so hopefully they don't listen to this.
Hopefully they do and see the light.
They'll be offended.
Okay.
So that one, and then I have a lion on my forearm, which, represents Christ.
Okay.
But kind of comes from like my favorite book, The Furious Longing of God, and kind of is like that combination of like the ferociousness of a lion, but also like the desire for your heart and stuff. So there's that one. And then I have a couple others. I have a fox on my calf for Pet Fox Studios.
Which is recording this episode
PetFoxStudios.com for all your recording needs.
Shout out.
And then I have, so that one I'm going to hell for, I think.
Probably.
And then I have an anchor.
I have
but
my visible.
But I do have a funny story. Actually, not about tattoos, but about my earrings.
Okay.
So when I was like 16, my dad was on a choir tour, where like he was a professor at Oak Hills College, and they went and toured, like 9 different churches around the state, and I played drums like for that. So we're at this Baptist church in I think in Detroit Lakes, and finished the set, and it's like this, you have a potluck, and then there's this meet and greet afterwards, right? So like everyone gets in a line, and everyone who was there at their Sunday morning service kind of came through and was like thanking everybody for coming and for the awesome music. And there's this gentleman who goes down the line. I'm maybe like 6th or 7th. He's shaking everyone's hand. And then he gets to me and he says, "I see you've marked yourself as a slave to this world."
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, "You got your ears pierced. You've marked yourself as a slave to this world."
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like,
I mean, that's the only thing that'll do it. So yeah.
He's like going, thanking everybody. I'm kind of just was like,
wow.
Jeez.
Well, I personally don't think that earrings and that physical, thing marks me as someone who's gonna, like go to hell for that. But since I was in their church and, I just said, sorry that offended you, and he went on.
So you didn't just go.
I really wanted to
just start manifesting.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So that was kind of that's one of my more interesting, like.
Yeah, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
so
some people have strong opinions.
As a slave of this world. I think that might have to be one of our quotes for this episode. You've marked yourself as a slave of this world. Wow. So slave. What is it? No, I'm just kidding.
World slave.
World slave. Jeez. Yeah.
To be fair,
I should get that tattooed somewhere. World slave.
You could probably make a biblical argument against tattoos, simply because there is a verse in the Bible that says, "Don't get tattoos."
I was going to say, like, okay,
biblical
for sure.
Argument
you can make an argument against it, probably more easily than you could make an argument for it. But let's be clear, there is a verse in the Bible that says, "Don't do it."
Yeah.
So
yes. So if you just take that verse and take it at completely
so
like
in my
face
Bible,
value.
that's on page 98. The last page in my Bible is page 1042.
So depending on how you view Scripture, the earlier the better. It's some theological rule. It's like a rule of first or something. Like whenever it's first established, that's like the most significant event, and then everything after that is like referring to the first event. And then like the Anabaptists and a lot of other people who view the Christ-centered, basically, the closer to the Gospels you get, the more important it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fun, weird balance we put ourselves in of understanding New Covenant, understanding Old Covenant, understanding what laws were put in place to a nation of Israel in a certain time in history for certain purposes. And understanding the wisdom of that at that time. There's what so stinks is that there's just not like the one prophet who speaks for God, like right now in our days, and we could just like go to him and be like, "So got this question."
Although to be fair, if he was here, would we listen, or would we just all be like, "Well, that's your take"?
Or would we? Well, some people believe they are that one person right now.
True story.
That's the problem.
And they have Facebook pages and television shows or radio shows or. And probably the one who really does have it lives in a village where there's like 3 other people.
Well, let's be real here. We all have a very incomplete version of what's going on, so we need each other.
Yes.
I think I can handle myself. I think I got it.
All right, sounds good.
We all have fully Christ in us that fully depends on all the other fullness that Christ is giving on everybody else.
Yeah, probs.
All right, so there's this no new information rule
so
that I am totally in the dark about.
David and I were just chatting right before we got started here that you tell the story what started last night. Okay.
So like last night, my wife and I went to a movie, 9 o'clock showing, which is actually rather late for me these days. So we get home at 11, and her being pregnant and all these things, like hasn't been in a very talkative mood the last few days, right? So I had to get up early this morning at 6 and go work. So I'm laying down, it's 11 o'clock. I'm like, I need to go to bed. And all of a sudden, she's just like, for some reason now, I just want to talk about everything. And I want to start, so I'm laying in bed.
Well, I'll tell you this right now that you've said it. You're not going to be talking to her for a while.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't think she actually listens to the podcast, so good. I might be safe.
You might be.
But so I fall asleep like this, like 2 minutes. Like once I'm laying in bed and I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed. So I've been laying there for a minute and a half. So that means I'm like already fading out. And then she's like, "Oh, hey." Yeah, I honestly don't even remember.
Yeah.
What we talked about. All I remember is that for like 5-10 minutes, she's like trying to talk to me. And she probably still was trying to talk to me when I fell asleep.
Yeah.
So Bobby told me about his rule.
We have a rule. And which was instituted early on in our marriage.
Okay, now I understand.
But took a while for it to fully it actually was followed.
Adoption.
The adoption element of it, which is you cannot give me, Whitney, new information once we both hit the bed. Like, no new information can come right now. And so she would often like tell me plans, things she's thinking about doing, what about this, what about that, have all these questions. And I'm a person who falls asleep in like 8 seconds.
Is that a dude thing?
So you can fall asleep real fast? Can you fall asleep
I'm
anywhere?
going to sleep,
right.
I'm out. Like,
what about you? Can you fall asleep fast?
Literally 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Once I decide I'm going to bed.
I mean, there are nights where I have trouble falling asleep, but they're few and far between.
They're very few, yeah.
And like, I don't know.
Yeah, I just go throw some discs or something downstairs, and then I'll wear me out, and then I'll wake up. But yeah, so it was always a struggle, like you said. She starts talking, I'm like, gotta keep my eyes open so hard
and try and answer things without engaging it too much.
And I'm like, I don't know. How about tomorrow? So we put in a rule. I'm like, listen, you're not getting out of me what you want, and I'm not getting what I want, which is sleep time now. So new rule, no new information once we get to bed. And I'll tell you, I haven't thought about this rule in a long time. Which is a very good sign because it's been followed, it's been effective, and I also don't have stress like before I go to bed because I'm not going to be anticipating the struggle of sleep versus listen to my wife who's trying to communicate.
Well, I will say this. Their late night conversations have been known to be awesome.
Yes.
So,
but not
in lieu of a hard fast rule. I guess there have been a handful of times where, like you said, David, it's like 11 at night. Mm-hmm. You just had a later night, and you end up talking like for another hour or something, and it's fun, like it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from, though.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, like if I'm not awake and conversational at that point.
Yeah.
There's no hope.
No, you have no hope. You talked to me when we were on the couch.
Yep.
And we weren't really doing anything. And right now it's elements of like, we're just watching
like
disc golf.
15 minutes ago?
Yeah. Like 15 minutes ago. When you were silent for the last 3 hours.
Before I decided in my mind that I'm going to bed because there's no turning that train
it was
around.
like it's a switch. Like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, all the things she wants to talk about comes up to the surface.
It's true.
But,
so, David, did you see Arrival? I mean, Passengers.
Passengers.
Okay.
Yep.
Bean rating. We don't have to go too in depth, but
do you want to do the roasted review right now, or let him roasted review it later?
We could wait till the end, I guess.
Okay, let's wait till the end.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we'll just say I'm giving it a 2 tops.
Oh,
just just to keep you listening.
To be honest, I don't want to see it because I think my rating might be lower. So
negative beans. They owe me beans before I get back.
No, like if I was like 16 and I wasn't married, like
all right. Oh,
Jennifer Lawrence,
right.
like that's
That's kind of what I figured the movie was going to be.
I feel like that's why most
got
guys would actually go.
We put them in the movie.
Exactly.
Lots of
added
undressing.
Space.
Yes, lots of it.
Yeah.
So exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Well, let's get on to the fresh roast.
Are we going? Okay.
Yeah, we're going.
Okay.
So I just have to throw it in here right now.
Sure.
So showered, I'm getting dressed, and I realized I was like, what should I wear for the podcast? And then I'm like, I'm an idiot. It's a podcast.
It's like,
what should I wear
for the radio show?
It's not like people see. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like looking, I'm like, what should I wear? And I'm like,
right now I'm wearing
I don't need to wear anything.
I'm wearing my dad jeans and
those are
a sweater with my name on it. Actually, I really like the sweater.
At least it's Under Armour.
Yeah, it's an Under Armour sweatshirt I got as a gift from my brother-in-law for Christmas, and I'm like, this is totes my sweater for when I'm disc golfing.
Oh yeah,
it's light, and you know whose it is.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you were in high school and wearing that, I'd think you were just a complete douchebag. But
one of those jock jerks.
Yeah, exactly.
A jock jerk.
My name on my Under Armour sweater.
See, when I was in high school, you don't put the name on the front; you put the name on the back.
Right.
That's true.
Bam.
And you probably have a number.
Yeah, you have a number.
Right.
Yeah. So, what are we talking about, John? Lead us off.
Well, okay. So, I'm not It started with a question.
Yeah, we should probably preface.
That's how lots of
context.
relationships start.
Right, starts with a question. That basically boils down to kind of this contradictory tension where if a guy is going to have some kind of friendship with a girl, there has to be some kind of
married guy.
Right, married guy.
A married guy.
Well, or just anybody. If you're going to have a relationship connection with them, there has to be an emotional connection on some level.
Okay.
Or it's not really friendship.
Oh, right.
I would posit.
Yep.
Okay. So then you put that in the context of a married man in the body of Christ. How do we go about having good relationships with, essentially both genders of the church in a healthy way that's, one, not fakey? Because if you don't have, like, real friendship, then, like, I guess I have a problem with that. Like, you're alienating part of the church. Like, you can't really interact with them on any kind of meaningful level. Or it's always through a proxy, like your wife or what have you. So how do you have a meaningful relationship, aka like there's some level of emotional connection, without straying too far the other way and getting yourself into trouble?
Yeah.
So, and that turned basically into how do we minister to one another, especially on a one-on-one setting? Is that okay? Is that doable? Is it just danger all around?
I think let's start there at the ministry level.
Okay.
Right.
Because that, I think it's probably, my guess is going to be more complicated just on the, like, relating on a friendship level. So, like I think
there's more factors.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to start at the less complicated, maybe, toward the more complicated. So hopefully less guidelines, less rules, to the more complicated, more rules, more guidelines.
Sure.
So David, what is your viewpoint or thinking? Should we just pose a scenario and then, like, to kick us off?
Well, I can give, like, just a real life scenario.
Okay,
go for it.
Of, like, so we do Real, which is like our once a month ministry night.
Okay. And it's a focus. So for the people who are listening, it's a focus of, like, worship. Right.
It's just basically an hour of worship time where people are welcome to come, sit, stand, talk to other people, whatever. Focused on just like a time to worship and to use your gifts.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's always food and stuff. So it's just a good time. But like, real life example of this was like maybe like 4 reels ago. I really felt like God was putting on my heart, like there was just a random girl who I didn't really know sitting by herself, and I really felt like God was putting on my heart, like, go share this with her. Right? And so then once we get done, I was like, okay, I'm not, like, I don't feel comfortable or feel like it would be wise to for me to just go up to a random girl who I have no relationship or don't know her and be like, sit next to her, especially since I'm married and all these different factors, right? But sit next to her and be like, hey, so, here's what I feel like the Lord. So
scenario is, you feel like you have a word from the Lord for an individual who is of the opposite sex.
Yes.
And you were stuck in a place of, I don't feel comfortable alone talking to her, but alone as in there's like, a whole bunch of people here.
But me approaching her on an individual, like just me and her, giving her this word, right? So then, like, no dumb moment, my sister Hannah, right? We always do ministry together. I just right away was like, hey, I feel like I have a word for that girl. Will you just come with me? Right? So then she came with me, and it was great because, and I think there's a lot of reasons why maybe we can't make a hard and fast rule of like a guy should never go one-on-one pray for a girl. But I think there's a lot of reasons why it's wise. Like one of those being, I was able to share what I felt was on my heart. And then be like, now Hannah is able to, I was able to just be like, don't know if that was like right on or right, whatever, but think about it. And then my sister, who's able to then be able to go out to coffee with this girl next week or whatever, follow up on that ministry in a more like one-on-one, intimate, mentoring relationship, was able to then actually continue praying with this girl and then have coffee with her the next week, right? And continue that out in a way that I definitely wouldn't have been able to, right?
Okay.
So there's scenario number one, I guess, of why a guy shouldn't one-on-one, especially like if you don't have any previous like relationship with that person.
Okay.
Just go be like, hey, I'm going to go pray for you.
All right.
Or whatever.
Poke, John. Poke.
I think actually in that scenario, provided that follow-up is one of your goals, I think it is important to have someone who can continue something that you can't. And it's important to be wise about what you can do and what you can't do. On the other hand, I would say there is a chance, and I'm like, if I were to put myself in this gal's shoes that you prayed for, there is a chance that you bringing in someone you know, but not necessarily someone she knows, puts her in an uncomfortable position. If you have a word for someone, chances are, if you're not willing, if it's not public enough to give to everybody, like in front of a mic, then chances are that the word has been given to you for that person, and that bringing in a third party, I mean, unless you really see God about it and it seems okay, just makes it a little weird. Like, I don't necessarily want just another rando, like, getting in on my words. The other thing, too, is...
you're selfish of those words. I don't want randos in there.
And the other thing too, like, and I think real is a little different in that there are people that we don't regularly have fellowship with.
Right.
And my initial kind of scenario happened with someone that we do have frequent relationship with, and that my wife knows and is comfortable with, and we've gotten together throughout the years and whatever. So for me to go, and it was sort of by accident, like I didn't see someone like, oh, she is hurting, like I should go minister. I think that's a different scenario. Like if you see someone in that place, unless you really feel called, I think there's a big chance that you might be taking advantage of the situation. Not even as a married person, but as a single person. But that's a matter of the heart. And I think it's hard to make a hard, fast rule. But like in this case, if I know the person and I know my wife knows the person and I feel called to like just pray for him or ask him what's going on, like I think that's okay.
But a person you don't know, talking to them, do you personally feel comfortable
I'm
talking
still
to
on
them?
the fence.
You got a word from the Lord.
If we're in the context of a church and everybody's doing ministry to each other, because we've had like prophetic exercises and whatnot, if I feel like I have a word for a woman in the church, in general, the rule for me, I guess, is that I am okay giving the word by myself. And I think there are exceptions.
Sure.
So if I feel like this is something that either someone wiser than me needs to know, or someone that person knows who can then follow up, then I'll bring somebody else in. So like there was an example of someone in our church who, I mean, she's quite a bit older than me. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her. And I was asked like, well, would you give a word to her alone? And I was like, probably. Or I would find someone like my mom, who is also like a really good friend of hers and like prophetically wise. So it's hard to make it like black and white, hard and fast, but I think in general, I don't have a problem ministering one-on-one. You do need to use some discernment. Like if things are obvious, like if they're in a vulnerable spot, if you're in a vulnerable spot, clearly like that's an issue. Or if you have a history of something, like who knows? Like I grew up in this church, so there might be people like that I've had crushes on, like when I was a tiny person. Like that might be a little weird, you know. But what do you think, Bob?
I think I'm probably closer to that. I personally have never had a problem delivering a word to someone of the opposite sex. I haven't had words. I can see where you can have. It's more probably on the context of the word, where I can see there needing to be other people involved. If this is a word that screams follow up, then I may even still give it individually and then like establish connection with them to find a way to follow up with them, either with someone they know or some kind of person connected in our church, and develop a mentoring relationship with get them connected with a mentor in some way. But I still wouldn't feel the need to get another individual involved directly at the time if follow-up was a key.
So do you see any potential danger in a situation like that? Because I know that there are a lot of people, like we've had prophets come in and whatever, that have kind of rules about that. Like I'm not like, if I give them a word, it's going to be in a public setting, like it's going to be in front of a mic. If I have to give a private one, like maybe somebody else is going to be in on it. Like,
so that's the thing.
I might not touch them for like ministry.
Like, am I knocking on their door and calling them when they're all home
I think
alone and giving a private word?
Too.
Or am I talking like,
I think
I need to share a word with you and only you really need to hear it right now?
Right, like corner of the
I think
room.
it's just,
to me, all words should be that way.
I agree with that. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't agree with like the public over the mic word
I
for
agree
someone
with having it, but
specifically.
me personally, I feel like I'm going to start with giving a word individually because I have no idea how that person is going to react.
Exactly.
Isn't there a chapter
publicly
in Corinthians that talks about like prophecy is it for the unbeliever? It's something about a public context, so that the unbeliever is like, dude, like they know my stuff.
I don't think the context of that word though specifically dealt with specific words for specific people. I think it meant prophecy in general for the church.
Okay.
Right, because it's hard because
like
it's right in the spot where it's also talking about like how
about tongues,
like
too.
tongues and how that's not
prophecy.
a public, like that's for your own personal edification, and if you're gonna give a speak in tongues publicly, it has to have someone who can interpret, and then it goes to prophecy. So you can kind of at least say they're probably talking about like public.
Bob, do you get emotional connections with women, and is that a problem?
Do I get emotional? I have friends. I mean, there are women in my life I consider friends, absolutely, who most of the context of the friendship, I would say, though, develops as a marriage to marriage friendship.
Sure.
Right.
But I have no problem like if we were to by chance see each other in a public place, like going over and talking to the individual while not having the fear of like people wondering what the heck is going on, or these people are talking to each other. I don't have any of that fear. No, I think just where I am in life, there isn't many friendships in general that I have.
Bummer.
That isn't. That's true. I have less of those. I had less when I was I probably had less when I was in high school. I had about one friend.
Man,
in high school.
That's rough.
I mean, that's only.
And then when I got
to
college, I had two.
Okay, yeah, I had two in high school, and maybe a couple more in college.
Yeah, I had 1 to 1.5 true friends in high school, and then about 2 true friends, which developed to 3 with Whitney in college. But what I was getting at was I don't have very many friendships in general that there is a private setting. Like I'm sitting down, I'm talking in your living room, just you and me.
I mean, you and me went to see Arrival alone.
Yes.
In a dark theater, Bob.
Would I ever do that with just a girl?
Did anything happen then, guys?
I guess my question, maybe without asking it, which here I'm about to ask, are we cautious because of public perception? And I just bring this up because Galatians 3, Paul talks about like we've all been baptized into Christ.
Yep.
There's no Jew nor Greek, slave or free, male or female. And maybe that means like some people in the Galatian church were like, yeah, you're a woman, you're not really part of the church.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, in a modern context, it means if we are all the body of Christ, then we can interact in a manner that is like God honoring, but also like genuine.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know, like I feel like it's tricky either because society says like you're essentially cut off like once you're married, or when you're not married, like you're just here to play the field. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there's no real, like, I guess this real platonic whatever, like, is that an actual reality?
Okay, so I was just thinking about your like, you and I went to the movies. I can see friendships that I have with other couples where if me and the woman of the other couple wanted to see one movie and Whitney and the man of the other couple want to see a different movie, I totally can see in certain relationships where like, well, we're going to go see that one. You guys go see this one. We're going to have a great night.
Right.
And that's it. I could totally see that happening.
All right.
Yeah. And I
keep a chair between.
No, no, I totally could see that.
Right.
But at the same time, I ask Whitney, is this something that's okay? And if she says, I don't feel comfortable with it, not happening.
Right.
I'm not convincing her at all.
You don't go against what your
it's a partnership.
Is.
It's we're doing everything together. So no, there's zero, and all things in all of my relationships, kind of everything is run through with Whitney, because things I do with all of even my guy relationships, it affects her because it affects her time I spend with the family, time I'm helping, time everything's an opportunity cost, right? So something I choose to do with one thing, I'm choosing not to do something else, which could affect her.
Right.
So I'm not like, it's not like I'm slave to the schedule,
right?
But I'm aware of what I do affects her.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that in all of my relationships that I have, that she's honored and feels okay.
Well, and she is still the priority relationship.
Absolutely.
Right. So to circle back, because we kind of got down the other rabbit trail.
Right.
So I asked both Hannah, my sister, and then my wife, right? Like, gave them basically that scenario of like, you go to some worship night.
Yep.
And you're the girl who's sitting there by yourself because for whatever reason, like, you went by yourself.
Yep.
And there's a random guy who's the worship leader, right? So like right away, you do have that level of like, okay, so that guy's in a leadership position. You have a little bit of a recognition. It's not like someone comes from behind you and sits down and is like, hey, I
never come from behind. Rule number 1.
But. So I just gave them the scenario without like saying, hey, like, help me understand this a little bit. Both of them said that they would not be comfortable.
Sure.
And probably would not receive it nearly as well.
So
if
how
that
come
person
you didn't
approached
just tell
individually.
them what's your problem? Like right then and there and correct them. Just kidding.
Lay the smack down. Now, I know from Hannah, because I talked with her about it too. Yep. She is kind of seen that ministry situation abused. So there's precedent there where now, like, if that happens, I feel like her guard is maybe already up.
Right. But
which is not to discount her,
I think that's the point,
experience
I think
by any means.
The majority of people, especially women, are probably going to be more comfortable if they're approached, like if not just some random dude approaches them. So it's like, is it just more wise, and especially to make sure that what the Lord actually wants you to give to them is able to be received well, to just like say best practice is probably to bring another woman or another person or somebody that you know that person knows who they're comfortable with 90% of the time. Like, I think that there's a lot of reasons that, like, overall it's probably more wise for accountability, for the comfort of both people, for like perception.
That's hard, David, man. Because let's say
I feel like
there's
this
so many
is a great
examples.
question for listeners to weigh in on.
It is.
Especially
definitely.
If you are a female individual, if you have experience with this or not, what is your preference?
Because how do I know what's going to make them more comfortable?
Right, because
Whether or not
if you
more
bring in
people's going to make them
people,
less comfortable,
you might be ganged up on.
The ganged up on approach, or
right.
I think that there's an element of what is the condition of the heart of the individual coming to give the word, and then allowing Holy Spirit to do what He does best, ministering to the people with the word. Not to kind of say like all words kind of need to be drive by, like you go throw the word and you ditch. But I haven't had too many words where I'm like, I give the word, and then I'm there with the stranger who I've never met before, and I'm giving this word to for like the next 35 minutes.
Right.
Most of the time I give it. What do you think about it? Do you want to talk to somebody about it? Is there anybody here you're comfortable? Because now that I'm sitting there talking with them, I can find out who are they connected with, because I have no idea if they're a stranger.
Right.
I have no idea who to pick that's going to make this person comfortable. I want to first shake their hand, introduce myself, and say I have a word. Is it okay if I can share that with you?
Well, and I think manner goes a long way.
Yeah.
Like if you like are a total random stranger to that person and you like sidle up to them and like put your arm around him and be like, hey,
kiss him on the cheek.
Yeah, like I really feel like I've got a word for it. Like there's still like you need to make an acquaintance.
People need to learn how to do it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to be a creeper about it. And I feel too like if we really are being ministers of the gospel, and I don't know, I just feel like in some of these cases we're maybe driven too much by what could go wrong or what could, and I get that there's precedent. Like I guess
I get where your perspective, David, is coming from of how do we stay as wise as possible in relationships and appropriate boundaries. In my viewpoint, in a ministry setting, you're safe 90% of the time of approaching an individual of the opposite sex and giving a word to that person individually.
And sometimes even a question is okay. Like, I have a word for you. Do you want somebody else in on it?
Yep.
Is there anybody else you want here with you while I pray for you?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that's an element of the person listening, I think, too, of Holy Spirit, of like, do I need to check something? Right. What's wise right now for me to do? I fully believe, like, if I'm feeling that connected in that moment to God, that He's going to tell me, by the way, like, ask first, like, would you be more comfortable if I brought somebody else over here?
That said, I'll take the other side of the coin. If you are a woman and you are in a random place, how easy is it if you're just kind of in an emotionally vulnerable spot for some rando to come up and be like, hey, I saw you crying, let me try to comfort you. Like, there's potential for a lot of weird.
Yes. Yep.
So I think we need,
just like allowing everybody to read the Bible for themselves and come up with their own interpretation, there's a lot of room for weird.
Yeah. Primarily, I think we need to kind of just normalize the idea of ministry. Like, it doesn't have to be a weird hush-hush thing. Like, if somebody comes up to you and you're not comfortable, be like, you know what? I'd like to bring somebody else in, and be okay with that. Just being like,
as the giver,
that's not offensive.
As the giver, that goes back to the condition of the heart of the giver. Like, where are you at, and what's your top priority right now? If the top priority is, look, I think I have a word for you, I'd like to share it, then the secondary priorities of like how I'm delivering that start going away, because more of your priority is what God is saying. So you're going to be more submissive to what God is saying, less of what your
and Graham
clout
Cook
of being able to develop the
like,
word.
An equally important question is, what do you want me to do with the word that you've given me?
Yeah.
How should I deliver it?
Discernment
what should
is
be communicated?
a very important piece of it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think if our heart is in the right spot and we really are listening to Holy Spirit, I think we can safely be ministers on a one-on-one setting.
Yep.
Like, I mean, granted, like, yeah, you're not walking up to somebody's door like they're all alone.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so just to clarify, why is that wrong?
Yeah, what makes that any different?
So what makes that? Now, is that the gut check that just makes that wrong? Because I feel like the first thing that comes in my mind, that's just the gut check. Like, my gut don't feel good about just approaching a female.
Well, because
walking down the sidewalk,
Well, I've done that. But that's public. So, like, knocking on their door.
Yeah. Right. I think part of it is respect for spouse who's not there.
Yeah. Or the spouse that isn't there yet.
But
I
was just saying, what if they're single?
I
feel like is there a word that's so
church
pressing?
Setting, though?
Because you're in a public place.
Right. You're not as private.
But it's still a private interaction that has a lot of potential for it to be emotional, like.
But if you're in a public setting,
so you're saying
and
is the
person
reason because the word is the reason why it's you need more boundaries or bigger boundaries is because of the emotional response that could happen?
I think there's a lot of pieces to it, right? I think that there's like multiple different reasons why best practice would be to involve somebody else in any like I'm going to someone of the opposite sex.
What about in a peacemaking scenario? So like this lady essentially I feel has committed a sin against me. Right. One of the commands we get in Matthew 18 process is first go to your brother.
Yep.
And talk to them about
their
sisters,
fault. Bob.
No sisters,
yeah,
brother.
It says brother, Bob. Strike one.
So if I find the right translation, I'll say brother or sister.
Yep.
Grab the message or whatever it is.
And just go to them individually. And if they find their own fault and repent, then you won your brother over, right? Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a general guideline. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but a general guideline is approach them individually with the issue. And that could elicit a very emotional response out of anybody of saying, by the way, you sinned against me.
Right.
I think I agree with you. There are some caveats that I think could alleviate some potential like exceptions. So like if you feel the need to go to your brother or sister one-on-one and do some of this stuff, I think the exception would be you can do it in a couple context.
Right.
Because for all intents and purposes, they are one flesh. It's going to be shared.
But what if they don't have a couple?
That's another interesting dilemma.
That's a hard one.
We got to always be thinking about the singles, man.
Right.
Come on. We can't forget.
Emphasize
so how
singles.
do you... So you would just say, like, I can pull some, let's just say, 19-year-old girl that we have to make peacemaking, right, into, like, a side room after church service and be like, hey.
Well, I don't think you have to be in the dark about everything. So, like, if I had something where I was like, you know what, I think I said something that, like, I really offended Elizabeth.
Right.
And I need to go talk to her. I would probably tell my wife that.
Right.
And just be like, hey, I think I need to do this. Mm-hmm. And if she sees, like, that's not a good idea. Like, you should probably either go in the context or have someone else, like, communicate or whatever.
Right.
I'll be like, yeah. Like, I'll at least consider that. But
what about the place that we're at? So, like, to me, in those kind of situations, I'd say, can I meet you at 9 o'clock at Common Cup? And there's something I'd like to just talk to you directly about as far as, like, how I treated you with
public
this. Or
kind
of
a scenario.
Public place.
Yep.
I think that, I mean, personally, like, I'm okay with even mentoring a girl or a female, especially if it's in a public setting, and my wife says it's okay.
Right. So we originally had this conversation with our producer, who's not here, and his rules, I think, are as insofar as a rule can be perfect. These rules are pretty good.
Yeah.
So the first one is you have to be in a good relationship with your spouse. They have to be in a good relationship with their spouse if they have one. Mm-hmm. And your spouse should be in a good relationship with them. And if there's open lines of communication and you are in the context of friendship, like, and all those factors are in place, then interaction on some kind of friendship level is
Yeah. Now, all of this is caveated, right, with like,
oh yeah,
what's your relationship with the Lord right
everything.
now? And like, do you see a vulnerability in your own heart where then you run as far away as possible as you can with that vulnerability, right? So all of those take in consideration, like for your question. If I check everything and I check all the boxes, I have no problem talking with an individual. Like I've given words to girls at IVCF before. Mm-hmm. Like I got no problem with that. Mainly because it's like, well, I feel like God's saying something. Yeah. And I feel like it's part of my obedience issue of like, do I trust that he's actually given me a word and to share that word? But since there's a larger group there, I have no problem just tapping someone on the shoulder and say, I think I have a word for you. Would you like me to share it with you? Is that okay? You know? I got no issue with that.
So there's no best practices or more wise, like overall.
I think probably the first one that will cover a lot of the areas that you're going after is the physical setting. Where are you? So if I'm in a public place or in a church or something like that, I think that takes away a lot of some of the bigger concerns, or maybe not some of the bigger ones. Maybe some of actually.
It covers
secondary
some of those
ones,
standard bases.
The standard bases, I think. The larger concerns are more of the conditions of the heart that cannot be controlled by setting. Right. But those are the ones you should be hitting first and finding out what's going on with you individually, with you and the Lord, and where there's any vulnerabilities for you.
Right. That
you would either need to run from or just get secured up or whatever. Once those are all checked, then I think in a public setting.
It's a weird. Maybe.
I mean, you're giving a face. Battle it back, man. That's what this is for.
Right.
Go.
Well, I just don't see why, in a public setting, you like in a church, like we're saying church, right? It's like your wife's probably going to be there. Johanna's probably going to be there. Yeah. Like there's all these women who you trust and respect and like know that they are people who like you would do ministry alongside.
There's so many other circumstances. Maybe my wife is praying for somebody else at the time. Maybe she didn't show up to church that day.
Yeah, but we're not just limiting it to your wife. There's probably what, 10 women on any given Sunday morning who you trust and would do ministry alongside.
I'm not going to exclude others just on principle. Like if I feel the need to bring somebody else in, totally I'll do that. But I think Bobby's point is valid. And my weird example is I think there are actually situations in the Bible where there was like one-on-one heterosexual ministry. Like maybe Jesus? Well, I guess the woman at the well.
Yeah.
And then like, I can't remember if it was Elijah or Elisha, went to that woman's house whose son had died. Mm-hmm. Extreme emotional vulnerability.
Sure. Yeah.
Just showed up at her house and like hung out for a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, like,
right.
He's putting himself in a really potentially dangerous scenario.
Yes.
But he was called to it and he did it. And I think his maturity maybe was in a spot where he was not vulnerable to that kind of situation.
We're talking about Jesus, yes.
But would the Lord put you into a situation that he's going to be like, man, I'm going to just mess this heck up out of David by giving him a word for a person that then's going to lead to an affair? Like, what?
I'm not... Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. But there's also the piece of like, I would say there's best practices that then discernment can trump. Right?
Yes.
So like, for my ministry team, right? Like if I had a ministry team, I'd be like, okay, guys, like the obvious expectation is like if you want to like feel like you're supposed to approach, if you're a man and you feel like you're supposed to approach a woman, like if at all possible, and unless you feel like, okay, she's going to walk out the door and it looks like there's no one else like available and I need to go share this with her, like just involve the woman standing to your left and be like, hey.
So I'm opposite on the best practice and the discernment. I feel like it's okay that there's freedom in this area and there is a trust level that I would have with the body of Christ to communicate with other members, regardless of their male or female. And then their discernment level is when they're on guard of, I might need to bring somebody into the situation just because of the content of the word or the situation requires it. I don't feel like the best practice needs to get to the area of bringing in someone else all the time as the default.
So let's go to like the super hypothetical worst case scenario, right? Mm-hmm. Of, well, I go.
Which hopefully will.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where we're approaching.
But I think that's the point, though, of like, so you approach, like some random person shows up in church on Sunday. Yep. You just go privately, like, give her this.
And by privately, you mean in
like,
a public setting.
In a public setting.
Of people around me.
Yeah, but like, it's just me and that person. No one else is like involved in it. Mm-hmm. Aware. Well, I mean, like someone might be aware. Oh, he's over there praying, but like not, right? And then that woman decides to then afterwards go tell her husband that you were saying, you know,
all
these inappropriate things.
I'm cool with everything
and
I've done.
But isn't there a healthy...
You said inappropriate things.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So if she decides to lie, that's not... How can I control that?
Right.
Well, if you have accountability, someone else who you trust and who's in good standing and doing ministry alongside you.
There's 95 people there keeping me accountable.
But for, like, you're standing within the community, say that person actually is like the mayor's wife, and it causes this entire group of people... Why wouldn't you have the same scenario with it's just two dudes? Because the fear that you have is the accountability element. So if you want to say for a best practice for accountability aspects of what someone has said to another individual as far as an official ministry setting, that's a different element than just say because they're female. I think there is
we could record the word or something.
And we could record the words.
Phone up.
Yeah, you could do that, yes.
We've actually I would say a large majority of the words that we've given are recorded.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. Yeah.
But so if your factor more is coming from a cover your butt standpoint, and accountability standpoint, I could see where you're getting at, and I maybe wouldn't necessarily totally disagree with that.
So that's what I'm saying is like looking at all the different
because they're female. I wouldn't say that.
But
that's the reason why you
what
bring
we're
someone
driven
else
by. Like I think we need to be led by the Spirit rather than by our to be covered. Which, like, caution is a good thing. Like, I'm not saying that, but like Bobby said, like these sorts of cautionary things, I think, should be the exception to the rule. Rather than every single time you go and minister to someone.
Yeah.
You need to have accountability. You need to have it recorded.
If the
just
content
so that
of
we're
the
being
word
safe.
is going to be where there could be gray area, then even probably like recording it might be better for that individual. Just to say, you may want to record this so you have it for later.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, like I'm okay taking the risk.
And I would
of giving a word from the Lord, and letting that change that person's heart, and with the risk of them turning around and trying to use it to their advantage to start a kerfuffle.
And I would say just from from my perspective, it's so easy out of all these standard scenarios to involve someone the other way, like to involve someone else in that. And like from my two-person, so it'll be interesting to hear what other people say, right? Because if 90% of women come back and say, I would definitely be more comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. Like if a man I didn't know approached me with another woman and wanted to pray with me, right? Like
if somebody else wants someone in a scenario like that, I'm not going to be the one to be like, no, this has to be just you and me.
The word.
But I'm just saying, I think it'd be interesting because if the feedback is out of 90 20 people respond back and they're like, yeah, I would feel more comfortable, then it's like,
if we had 20 people
then it's like,
back,
hey,
a record.
Well, this probably should be best practice because if the majority of people are going to be more comfortable right off the bat, then why not do that, right? And if also it's adding accountability, and if also since ministry is relational and we're all about like getting together with people and investing in them, like I honestly don't want to just give a word and run, like sow a seed into someone else's life and not have some sort of and especially like because I'm not going to get together with some woman I don't know and have coffee. I want to I feel like it's better stewardship to hand that off and have somebody who I know is like in a solid place be there to then take that ball and say, you know what, great, I'm going to, since I can, go have coffee with this person or have some more conversation based off of it.
That is assuming that you can't.
And that's assuming the person you grab is going to be that person.
And I mean, like,
in your scenario, the person you're grabbing every time is thankfully the person who's directly involved with their life as a mentor type relationship to help carry the ball
well, it's
of
somebody
the word.
who can start that, right? Somebody who can start to build relationship, and
again, assuming that you can't, because like Bobby was saying, like he's
I'm
fine
doing
mentoring someone in a place like this.
Yeah.
In a public scenario, which I don't know. I guess I still have to chew on that.
Yeah. I've never done it, but everything would be with talking with Whit and seeing where she's at. But if the Lord set up that type of scenario,
I think
are you better suited than like your wife to wouldn't your wife be better suited to probably do that?
There are people
mentorship
that
to
my wife just does not connect with.
Yeah.
And okay, not your wife, but like out of your cell of people, like there's probably a woman who's more better suited to mentor.
Well, not necessarily.
Just based on gender?
Based on just like going through more similar things. Being able to have more conversations, right? Like, I'm not going to be able to.
I guess I would say like personality plays a bigger part in that. But again, like, I guess from where I'm coming from, yes, there are a lot of boxes to be checked when you are trying to decide, like, do I give a word one-on-one? Do I do ministry with this person? Do I mentor with this person? There are a lot of boxes to be checked. And if they are not checked, like, you have no business pursuing that kind of thing. But if the boxes can be checked, spouse is okay, public setting, all those kind of things, then I'm okay with that situation happening. Like, I'm not saying, like, be incautious. Like, just go do whatever you want and like take advantage of scenarios and whatever. Like, that's not really the deal. But we are running pretty long.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about The Shining, but we are at, I think, 68 minutes right now.
Yep. Sweet. That's cool. All right. So David's general point is, if I can recap
summarize your point,
is best practice. For it's more safe to have another individual there to help keep all parties accountable for what's going on.
Yeah, not even just accountable, just like to help it be potentially received better, to help have better follow-up and like have more fruit come from that, all of those different things. I think that best practice would be...
I can't 100% fault the idea. So, I mean, it's like 88.5% fault. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think, I haven't done that. And I don't see it as a general requirement, but I'm not put off totally by that. As if I was in a ministry setting where they were to say, by the way, our practice is this, I would not be off put by that. I don't think.
So you got to implement that for MCC now.
Yeah, that won't happen. But it's not a deal breaker. I would say it in your settings. If you were the head of a ministry and you were saying this is what I would like to put into place, I wouldn't say that's a deal breaker.
Right.
I would say there might be scenarios where I would try to, depending upon the word, as long as the ministry is open to, like, this is an extremely private word that this person probably will not want to have other people around hearing this.
Right.
I feel it's more a one-on-one type of word.
Right.
As long as the person's open to exceptions.
That's where discernment trumps, and that's where it's important for the people who are, like, doing ministry within a church to all be in good relationship with each other, so that then there's no, like, your pastor then is like, how dare you go do this, right? It's, I trust Bobby, right?
Trust is a big deal. Okay.
All right.
So our segments, do we want to do a roast review? I have a great story, and I can try to keep it under 10 minutes.
Okay.
Or do we want to do a review?
I don't know.
You stayed up late last night.
I stayed up late just to watch it.
All right, so I might let you do the review so that way you don't feel like shafted out of staying out really late to do this.
Okay. I guess
go for it.
I did want to watch the movie just so that I've.
Okay.
Well, there's that too.
Okay, we'll talk about it. I'll save my Florida's freaking crazy story for. I mean, it's coming back. It's coming back to haunt me crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dang, that's almost too much of a. I'm not going to follow that up, Bob.
Well, I mean, the listeners have gotten some short episodes. Maybe they just need a long one.
Do you guys want a long one? Nod your heads, yes.
Yes, please.
There we go.
All right.
You do The Shining, and I'll do my story.
Okay, I'll do The Shining. The Shining is potentially the most hyped horror movie of all time.
Really?
Would you disagree with that
I've never
statement?
seen the movie.
Never seen
the most
movie.
hyped.
Oh, is it the most hyped? Wow, that's a good question. The Exorcist is up there.
Okay, by hyped, maybe I don't mean hyped. Maybe I mean culturally influential.
Oh, Here's Johnny. And this is the Here's Johnny.
Everybody knows the Here's Johnny.
Yeah.
Right.
And like just stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's either the Poltergeist. I think it's the Poltergeist where it's this house is clear. That line.
Say it. I've never heard
seen
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So I've exorcised the demons.
Horror movies are
have you ever
demonic,
seen
so I
Liar,
don't watch
Liar
them.
with Jim Carrey?
A long time ago.
Okay, so in like one of his depositions in the final trial, he's like, I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear. That's from the Poltergeist.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I believe, correct me where I'm wrong, Nation Roasters, but I believe that's what it is.
Well, and I guess
so
the Here's
Exorcist,
Johnny line is sort of a cheat because he took it from the Johnny Carson show.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was already popular.
I would say those three movies to me probably are the first ones that pop in my head as far as horror
so for
movies
sure,
that
The
have,
Shining is
have
top
had
5.
Influence in yes,
like
absolutely.
everybody
for
thinks
sure.
of The Shining.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Okay.
top 5.
Here's the deal. Like, I get that people want to defend movies that don't adapt books well. They're
Yes,
like, movies are a different genre. Like,
Right.
you can't fault the guy
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like just doing his own thing.
But we can't fault the people who did Noah's. Just kidding.
I feel like Stanley Kubrick, who I'm beginning to not be a fan of at all, bought the rights for The Shining because otherwise it would be loose plagiarism for
Yeah.
the movie that he made. Like, he wanted the title, and he wanted a haunted hotel, and he wanted some like
So you've read
axe
the book?
murderers. Yes, I read
Okay.
the book a while ago.
Okay.
The book is really cool.
Yeah.
It's about a hotel that basically has consciousness and has like absorbed some of these people who've been murdered.
Yeah, that's demonic.
Oh,
for
I
sure.
so want to watch that.
You won't get it in the movie.
I won't get it in the movie. Dang it.
So the
And I
whole
don't read
thing
books.
is the little boy has the Shining. He's like
Okay.
telepathic, basically. He can communicate and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
knows what's going on, and he doesn't really know it because he's pretty young.
Yeah.
And the hotel wants the boy,
Okay.
which is why the hotel basically seduces the father,
Yep.
who is legitimately trying to do his best.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of reset, like be a better person, all this kind of stuff, seduces the father so that it can get the boy, because the boy is the Shining,
Okay.
and it's greedy, basically.
Okay.
Super cool story. The movie has none of that.
Oh.
Like, for no apparent reason, about a month in to like their stay at the hotel,
Yeah.
he just starts going crazy, and he was mostly crazy to begin with. Like, there's no plot
Yeah.
at all. Now, I
Now,
will
Stanley
grant
Kubrick, he did also
he did 2001.
2001: A Space
Yep.
Odyssey.
So,
Another movie
right.
with no stupid plot.
Jack Nicholson was amazing.
Yeah.
He is the creepiest person in the whole world, and you can tell he had the time of his life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he has so much fun. Like, his eyebrows like are the most expressive things on the planet. Like, it's not entirely a terrible movie. The way that they do like camera angles, it wasn't just the soundtrack. The way like the camera follows the little boy down the hotel halls, you're like, oh man, like you're on edge the entire movie.
Yeah. So as a horror movie in general, like if you never read the book, how would this have gone?
It's a little weird.
Okay.
As a horror movie, like there's almost no jump scenes. It's very, very slow. So the whole I was getting an ulcer and I was bored. Because
so you had attention the whole time.
Every single scene is super, super tense, and maybe 1 in 10 something actually happens.
Right.
And you're like, dude, how much of this can I take? So I actually I watched 45 minutes, and then I'd
go
stop.
Stretch.
No, I shut it off and I watched Pulp Fiction instead, and then I finished it last night, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, it's just there's no story.
Okay.
So I was pretty bummed, and I feel like I can say that because this is one of the most hyped movies ever. Everybody's
absolutely.
like, "Oh man, The Shining! Oh man, The Shining!"
Yeah.
So Stanley Kubrick, I don't know what you're on.
Overrated.
Seriously.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then, and, the mom character, you can tell they just picked her because she looks freaky. There's no character there. She has these bug eyes, and it looks freaky. Whenever she gets freaked out, you're freaked out.
Yeah.
But that's all she's there for. And I was like, come on. So there was a lot that didn't work.
Your bean rating.
I'm not a horror guy anyway.
So this is going in the ones.
My bean rating, I think I'm going to try to be generous and give it 2 beans.
Okay.
Just because
Jack Nicholson was amazing.
Nicholson. Enough people have seen it.
Nicholson, yeah.
Nicholson.
Enough Nicholas is the golfer.
Right. Enough people have seen it and loved it.
Yeah.
That I feel like I can't disrespect.
No, this show is about disrespect.
All right. Half a bean.
Half a bean.
No, just I think a solid bean and a half, just because it gave me the emotional response that it was going for.
Okay.
It was there to freak you out. It did its job.
All right.
There's
that's
absolutely
good. Okay.
no story to speak of.
Okay, sure. But
Which
that's
is
like
really
some action
annoying.
movies. There's no story here or anything
sure.
believable. That just
But
blows up stuff. And you're
coming
yeah!
from a 700-page book or whatever it was,
true.
where there's a lot of
you
story.
You did the thing that Americans don't do, and that's read the book.
Yeah, just don't read books, John, and you'll be much more happy with the movies.
There you go. But the thing is, I really like the book, so check out the book.
Okay.
But yeah, Stephen King apparently sent a letter, an open letter.
Yeah.
The night of the release or the night before the release of the movie, basically apologizing for the movie. He's like, this movie sucks. I hate it. I had no control over what they did with it. Have fun.
Go read my book instead. Yeah. Oh, man.
So, which I think is telling. And then he made some really, really low budget, ABC version of it. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely terrible, but it's more accurate to the story.
Oh, sure.
So,
okay.
I don't know. The whole thing.
You can't do anything horrible or can't do a horror movie on ABC. That's just.
I don't think it was ABC. It was some TV channel. I think picked up a low budget.
Unless it's the Horror Network, I'm pretty sure they're not going to let you do a whole lot of stuff.
So for someone who can't do horror at all, it was definitely handleable.
Mm-hmm.
But not in a way that was that was a great movie. It was just got through that one. Check that off the list.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I have a story. I've shared this story with David. And again, it goes back to Florida. And you're not disappointing in 2017 Florida. I thought you had a chance, but you started the year off on this note, and you're going farther down than I could have imagined. All right. It is, what was it, Monday morning. Yep, I think it was Monday morning. I get a phone call. Johnny, I'm up here. He's looking at his phone. I'm just kidding. I'm not really. Look at me.
Oh.
No, so I get a phone call at 12:25 a.m. Okay.
And you
got
answered
his
it?
attention.
Because the only other times I've ever gotten phone calls at 12:25
put your phone on
in the
silent.
morning. Not my cell phone, my house phone.
Oh, your house. Okay.
Yeah, my house phone.
Who still has one
You
of
got to
those?
specify. Seriously.
Yeah, so the house phone rings at 12:25 in the morning. And I answer it. And the person says, is this Robert Culbertson?
Oh.
Yes, it is. I'm a sheriff from Lake Worth, Florida.
Okay.
And he gave his name. Let's say it's Al. He says, I'm Al. I'm a sheriff from Lake County, Florida. And I want to know if you are related to we'll say Bill, related to a Bill.
Names have been changed for protection?
Names have been changed for protection. And I said, that Bill name does not ring a bell. I'm sorry. And he's like, are you sure you don't have like any relation with or know of or any connection with Bill? I just can't. I don't think I have any knowledge of this Bill. And he goes, okay, that's fine. We had a Robert Culbertson listed as a possible contact for this Bill. And
your number, or they had to look it up?
He just said with a Robert Culbertson, and the Social Security number that we have on file here comes from the state, was issued out of the state of Ohio. So, well, that's probably my dad. My dad's name is also Robert Culbertson. He was born in Ohio. And so I said, that's probably my dad. He didn't, but Al doesn't ask for his number or anything.
Okay.
But it kind of starts making clicking sense if you're doing a quick search of where's Robert Culbertson in the state of Minnesota. I'm the only one with a public phone number. My dad doesn't have a landline.
See, he's a normal person in
he might
2017.
Be.
Right.
So, yes. He's like, well, if anything rings a bell, just call me back. You have my number now, we'll like to hear from you if you get anything. Fantastic. Okay, great. Hang up. I'm awake now. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, stinking A.
Time to putt in the basement.
Yeah. No. Go into the Googles. Right. First thing I'm thinking whenever I receive a phone call like that is don't give out any more information than you need to.
Yep.
This could be a scam. I'm always thinking this could be a scam. All right. So give no information. Second, so I searched the Bill guy online. Okay. Bill is the person he was asking about.
Right.
Al was asking about. So I searched
Who
Bill.
had you for a contact.
Had me for a contact. So I put in Bill. Sure enough, that Bill lived in West Palm Beach, Florida, where I lived, and also has addresses in Minneapolis.
Oh.
So that's probably how they got to this set of Robert Culbertsons in the United States, right?
Because, Culbertson isn't that weird of a last name.
It's not that actually weird. And there's actually a few Robert Culbertsons out there, and there's actually a couple famous ones, which is pretty interesting.
Well,
a musician.
Who
plays a really weird instrument.
What is that called?
I should look that up.
Small
Robert
Rabbit
Culbertson, YouTube, and you'll get... Okay. Anyway, so I search online, and then I'm thinking, you know what? I better call the sheriff back just to confirm.
The Chapman stick.
The Chapman stick. There you go. I better confirm the sheriff that he's legit. So I call the sheriff back. I said, hey, Sheriff Al, can you give me some information so I can follow up to confirm you are who you say you are? He said, yep, absolutely. My name is Al this. Spell my name like this way. You can call the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office at this. Here's the number. You dial 0 and then hit 0 again. That'll bring you an attendant. You can ask for confirm that Al with this badge ID. And I'm in the homicide unit.
Oh, geez. It's about to get real.
Homicide unit, dude. So I was like, oh, that's why they're looking for the relation for Bill, because he's dead and they're trying to find his family. Why my name is attached to this guy and my dad. So I email my dad and I'm like, stinking, hey, Dad, do you know this Bill guy? It's like, never heard of him. Or we're like, something just randomly got weird. So then I was like, hey, looked for like ID capturing or fraud or whatever, identity theft. I'm like, just in case something like really weird went down. But then here's the next like fun twist. So I type in Al's information, the sheriff, into the Googles. First link that pops up is a spiketv.com video. I click on it. It's from Cops, and he was a cop on Cops busting people's butts in Florida.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't believe it. It was awesome.
Dang, dude.
Yeah, just crazy. So I kept for the anonymity a little bit here because I don't think they've confirmed online that Bill is dead. So I searched and looked for shootings. There was a shooting at that guy's address, essentially in Lake Worth, Florida.
Yeah.
And they said status of the victim is unknown. I'm like, raise my hand. I think I know. The guy's
I got
dead.
a pretty good idea of his status.
A pretty good idea of his status. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. plot
I feel like
thickens with
this is
Florida.
less about Florida and more about you. You have just crazy weird connections.
Because he lived in
Because
Florida.
of Florida.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Florida's
Florida's in your blood.
Yeah,
Floridians.
it's a virus that infects you.
Way to go, Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also chatted my uncles who live there and just making sure that everything's okay. And they both asked, did the sheriff ask for me?
No.
Bros, no. Oh, man. But, yeah. So, yeah,
Wow.
that was my Florida story.
I feel like it was worth it to go a little long for
And
that.
we got an epic long podcast. I want to thank Mr. David Swedburg for joining us, sir.
Thanks for
Thank
bringing
you
the interface
No
and
problem.
recording and giving us your 2 cents.
So this has been the Roasted Christian Podcast at Common Cup. I'm Bobby.
I'm John.
Thanks for listening.
You're welcome.